what are some common misconceptions or mistakes that you both see people making when they're using the Kirkpatrick model?
If you're a part of an organization, everyone's responsible for contributing to the mission, right? Otherwise, why are we there?
I want to know if someone is brand new to Kirkpatrick, or someone's been doing it for a while, what's one piece of advice that you have? Hey everyone, it's your favorite evaluation strategist, Vanessa and Jim. Jim, how are you?
I'm good. Good today.
Awesome. Well, before we get started with this very special episode, I want to just quickly give you all a very quick Kirkpatrick update. So first things first, we have a free webinar coming up, actually tied into this episode. Are you doing Kirkpatrick right? So it is on August 15th, and the link to sign up will be in the show notes. And really, we're going to be chatting about an extension of what we're going to be talking about today. Are you actually doing evaluation and the Kirkpatrick model right? Spoiler alert, you probably not. But you will after our session. We have also officially launched the Kirkpatrick community. The Kirkpatrick community is your hub for learning and performance mastery. So we've got daily and weekly check-ins with our dedicated community manager, access to industry-specific forums and chats, access to our resource library, and quarterly Q&As with some of our Kirkpatrick Partners experts, including maybe a one Dr. Kirkpatrick coming up very soon. We also have quarterly industry relevant events and discounts on products and services. So we are currently running a special founder's price plus a further discount for our year-end sales. Speaking of year-end sales, we've got our government year-end deals and savings. So we've got discounts on certification programs, consulting and impact studies, and curriculum design. Visit our website for more info. And as a reminder, we are finally on the GSA schedule. And most importantly, please come get certified with us in person. It is the last time you will see us in person doing the bronze and silver program this year. It is September 4th through 6th in Dulles, Virginia. And we really want to see you there and to be able to learn more from your all's expertise and really co-collaborate. That September event is unlike any other program that we offer because we are offering a bonus day on the 6th where you actually get to work with a Kirkpatrick consultant on your blended evaluation plan. That does not happen ever. So make sure you are there for that. Whew, that was
Good
a
job.
lot.
You
Thank
did
you.
good.
Thank you. I was just trying to channel my inner my inner reporter. But today we've got a very, very special guest, our dear friend and employee at Kirkpatrick Partners, Jordan Rawlinson. Jordan is the learning and performance strategist at KP. She received a Bachelor's of Arts in Communication and Bachelor of Science in Health Sciences with a minor in creative writing, aka poetry, from the University of South Florida. She started her L&D journey in higher education before transitioning to the for-profit corporate space. She has over 7 years of experience wearing multiple hats in L&D, such as virtual instructor-led and instructor-led training facilitation and curriculum design, e-learning design and development, LMS administration, and her personal favorite, coaching. As a poet at heart, her guiding question in life and in L&D is one of Mary Oliver's most famous lines: "You plan to do with your one wild and precious life." Her biggest passion is developing meaningful learning experiences and encouraging individuals and teams to reach their potential as they answer Mary Oliver's question for themselves. She's a self-proclaimed personal development nerd, and not just self-proclaimed, I can actually attest to this, and deeply cares about keeping her personal and organizational core values at the forefront of everything she does. If you ever need a life chat, Jordan's your gal. Well, welcome, Jordan, to the podcast. How are you?
Thank you. Thanks for that lovely introduction. I feel very honored to be here in my podcast debut.
I know this is like your big debut party. I'm so excited about it.
Me
So,
too.
Jordan, obviously Jim and I know you pretty well, I would say. But can you tell us a little bit more about yourself, your background, and what you do for Kirkpatrick?
Yeah. I think you did a great job kind of briefing my background. So I'll just kind of talk about what I do here because I think that it's a really special type of role. So I'm the learning and performance strategist at Kirkpatrick Partners, which is a fancy way of saying I have the coolest job ever and get to wear all kinds of different hats. I do a lot of the facilitation of our bronze and silver programs. I also am on the team that helps update and kind of redesign those programs and our other offerings as well as needed. I've worked directly with Jim in consulting projects and our recent impact studies. So, um, really, I just kind of get to have my hand in a lot of different areas, which, based on my background, you can kind of tell I like to not stick to one thing. So, yeah, it's a little bit about what I do, but definitely have a background in the L&D or L&P industry, as we like to talk about.
Let me ask you about that. I wasn't sure if I heard you right because I'm so used to hearing L&D strategist, L&D. Did you actually say L&P, and what's the significance of that? Because that's very different from what I typically hear.
Yeah. So LNP is correct. You heard me right. So LNP is
Okay.
learning and performance. And that's one of the biggest transitions we talk about in terms of mindset, right? With the Kirkpatrick model. So it's cool that I get to actually have that official title too in my job title.
You know, one thing just before we get into some questions is when I saw the title of this, it says, "Are you doing Kirkpatrick right?" And I thought, well, why didn't they ask me to do that? Who would be better to answer that than me? But I was relieved when I saw that you were the one that we were going to interview because of all the work that you've done, here and even before you were Kirkpatrick. You are so well suited to share that, and I'm looking forward to learning some new things from you with our talk today.
Well, thanks, Jim. Yeah, I mean, I've just really been a sponge since I've been here. So my words of wisdom have come from YouTube. So a little bit of lived experience, but definitely.
Well, and I think that this is like the perfect topic to introduce everyone. Like I think they think of Jim and Vanessa as such a dynamic duo, you know. But Jim and Jordan, man, when they're out there doing the programs and doing the impact studies, like you guys are quite the dynamic duo. So people really need to see your all's work in action.
Yeah. We do have fun, don't we, Jim? We make a good team.
And we do
Even when
good.
you have to yell over fans, right? Repeat
Yes.
your, yeah, you guys have had some fun for sure. So speaking of a little fun, let's start with a fun fact question.
Okay.
Everyone knows mine and Jim's favorite level. What's yours?
So I have to say I'm also a level 3 gal.
Yeah,
I
that's why we're all, yeah.
Yeah. I mean 4 is my lucky number. So I do think that I have, a heart for level 4, but you don't get to level 4 without level 3, right? So that's why I think level 3 has to be my favorite.
I love that. So you and Jim are, like we said, both constantly out in the field. So thank you for doing so much traveling. So you facilitate our trainings and you do the certifications. What are some common misconceptions or mistakes that you both see people making when they're using the methodology and or talking about the Kirkpatrick model?
Yeah, I think there's kind of a couple that stand out across all of our conversations and programs that we've done. But I think the first that comes to mind is not planning the evaluation strategy first and then continuing to implement. So I think a lot of the time, evaluation's an afterthought. One of Jim's favorite quotes and famous quotes, like, we can't let evaluation be an afterthought. And I think that that's the connotation or the way that people have always done evaluation is looking back to see what happened rather than starting with the evaluation strategy and methods in mind first and then continuing to evaluate. We talk about continuous learning, but also continuous evaluation is important. So that's the first one that kind of comes to mind. Yeah.
Jim, what do you think?
I think I think that's a good one because so often, and Jordan, you and I have talked about this. People think it's a couple of points in time, a
Right.
smile sheet, after a test, or after training, a test after a 90-day survey, and you're talking about that the evaluation is continuous, fingers on the pulse rather than just a couple points in time and letting the rest just kind of take its own path.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just going to say this, but I'm going to leave it for the next podcast that Jim and I are going to record, where I plan on being unhinged.
Oh boy.
I
So excited.
know.
Me too.
We'll have you stay on for it, Jordan. I will say, for me, I think a common misconception, well, one is that it's a triangle. It's not.
Yeah.
Nor has it ever really been a triangle.
Right.
And the other misconception is there's a problem with the model, when in fact, there's more often than not a problem with the implementation.
Yeah.
And that is, I'm just going to leave that Easter egg here for the next podcast, whenever that one comes out. But yeah, I think we often are quick to blame a methodology, a process, right? And sometimes we have to look back and be introspective of like, am I doing that process right, or properly in order to get the desired results?
Yeah. Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about where you think training professionals should begin when evaluating their training program. So you talked a little bit about starting with the end in mind, but can you talk me a little bit more about what that actually looks like?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think we often talk about starting with level 4, which is kind of hopefully correcting some of the misconceptions that we start at level 1 and go up to level 4 when we're planning. But I do think it's important to start with level 4 in mind, which is basically just making sure you define and get clarity around what your goal even is and what behaviors you need to get there. I think that that's also a common mistake, is that there isn't enough clarity from the start. But honestly, the real beginning point before you even jump into level 4, I think, is figuring out if you even have a mission critical initiative at stake.
Oh, good.
So not every single program that you design needs all of the resources that are poured into level 3 and 4 if it's something that's just like a quick checkbox training. But if it is a really valuable program that has the potential to impact the mission of the organization and contribute to why it even exists, and you have your stakeholder support, like those are kind of the very first steps before you can even properly jump into the model.
Jordan, I'm gonna pretend I'm a person in L&D, learning and development, that we hear over and over again. And I would say, Jordan, yeah, that's all well and good to identify the end in mind, but we really have nothing to do with that. We are training and we are learning, and the most that we can possibly hope for is to maybe help people do their job better. So why do we even bother dealing with level 4? Because it's out of our influence.
Yeah. I mean, I would just say I respectfully disagree. I think that, I mean, if you're a part of an organization, everyone's responsible for contributing to the mission, right? Otherwise, why are we there? And I think if the goal is to impact performance, which it should be, or even if you aren't thinking about performance yet and you're still thinking about learning, well, why are we trying to help people learn? Well, and to do their jobs better is to keep the organization running, right? Like it all kind of fits together. And honestly, the other added benefit that I was kind of thinking about earlier is there's so many different priorities, so much different information coming at us at all times. And when you can really distill down to like your true mission and goal, and if you only focus on that, like you can cut a lot of the fluff out, which is honestly a relief to probably everybody, not just exclusively the learning and performance team.
One more thing, then I know Vanessa's got more stuff here, is when I work with you, whether it's training or impact studies or webinars, whatever we're doing, I hear you use the words creating value where pretty much everybody else is talking about demonstrating value. How do we demonstrate value? Every time I hear you talk about we must first create value, I just kind of smile and I kind of melt back into the, back into the room a little bit and let you go on your roll about that. Could you tell us why you emphasize creating value instead of just jumping to the end?
Sure. I mean, pretty simply, you can't have one without the other. I think we often want to justify our value, but that means that we have to be valuable in the first place if we're going to justify it or demonstrate it. We can't go back to our stakeholders and say, look at all these great results and look at all that we did if we didn't actually do anything to create that. So we have to, results don't just happen. They have to be actively created by what we're doing at level 3.
Oh, there it is. That's level 3.
Yeah.
Even though it's not your favorite number, at least you made an exception. It's not your favorite number, but at least it's close.
Right. It's
Good
close.
answer. That's excellent.
I mean, maybe it'll become her favorite number. You never know. Her second favorite, we'll say.
Yeah.
So can you expand a little bit more about creating value, right? And I think one of the things that actually the three of us talked about this morning is sometimes there isn't going to be value there when you first evaluate, right? And that is actually okay, because then that's actually a beautiful thing, because the only place you can go is up from there, right?
For sure. Yeah.
So tell me a little bit more about what it looks like when you aren't seeing the value, and some strategies that you can employ in order to help create that value.
Yeah. So like we just said, value is actually created at level 3, which is all of the behavior change. And that's where that lives. I think oftentimes learning and development professionals think that it's just level 1 and 2 where the value is created, right? Where it's like, oh, we put together this really fancy training and everyone really loved it and had a great time and learned a lot. But if they're not doing anything with that information, we're not really creating value with behavior change. So in order to do more at level 3, and this is another one of my favorite quotes of yours, Jim, is we don't just check for change at the behavior level, right, in performance, but we influence it. And that's where I think a lot of the value is created, because, and I mean, I am a instructional design, curriculum design person myself. I love the designing and creative process. But the good news for the creative people too is you get to continue to design, and you're just building in the support and accountability design pieces when your participants will be back on the job at level 3, and not just creating them, but making sure that they're actually implemented and useful. And if they're not, adjusting that along the way. So I think that ultimately is how people will be able to create more value, if they focus on those factors.
You just mentioned the word people a few times, and I'm going to tell you something, give you some feedback, Jordan, that you may not know about yourself. That every time we deliver, she's nervous now. Not to worry.
No, I have the same reaction when he does this to me.
Yeah, well, I gotta be real with you guys, but it even happened this morning where we work together, doing an impact study with the Navy, or delivering a program in Vermont, whatever, for the government. Is when I ask you what are your thoughts about it, and even this morning you don't tell me, well, this module went well, and this this part of the playbook went well. You always talk about the people and the experience that they had. Well, why is that part of the formula, and why would you do that instead of just kind of give me the instructional design and that kind of stuff of how it went?
Well, I mean, from a big picture standpoint, it probably goes back to some of what Vanessa mentioned in my intro, where ultimately I kind of care about how people are living their one true, precious, wild life. And if you're spending time in a training, we do not have this wild and precious life to sit in awful, unproductive trainings. You know what I mean? Like, I want it to be a rewarding and fulfilling experience and something that is useful and meaningful. Um, because I mean, it's like the Maya Angelou quote where people forget what you said and what you did, but they remember how you made them feel. So I think experience has always been at the forefront of my mind because just from like a life perspective, that's what I think I value a lot. And it's also just like, how are they going to use it ultimately, right? Get it to level 3 as much as possible when we do narrow it down to, okay, but in the model, how does that apply? So that's kind of my perspective.
So when I think of experience and some of the things that you were just talking about, there is a phrase we use to kind of describe that. Do you know what that phrase is that I'm thinking of?
The wow experience, is that what you're talking about?
Well, no, but yes. It's something that we provide at level 3. We talk about developing.
The sense of belonging and support.
Like required drivers.
Oh, got it. You're okay. Just
I'm a little bit more tactical than inspirational at the moment.
Got it.
Yes,
Got
are
it.
required drivers.
Of course.
Right. But then the fact of the matter is, right, we talk about things like necessities for success and we talk about required drivers, not common phrases, I think, for people to, it's not like common knowledge necessarily unless you're in the Kirkpatrick world, right?
Yeah.
But it is common in the sense of we all know the experience and their supports is what we need to actually be providing more of that performance package. And I think to your point, you said it so beautifully, is like, it's not just about creating that foundational training. Like, yeah, that has to be done, right? If that is the intervention that is needed, then you have to make sure you're doing a good job setting the stage, but really making sure you're focusing on the other pieces of it, the required drivers, in order to help create that value and influence. And that's where, for, I think, me, one of the biggest misconceptions, I think Jim will agree with me, is the fact that like all you're doing at level 3 is checking that behavior is changing. But there's just, to your point, right? There's so much time in between. You can't just like pray that people are going to change their behavior. You have to help them change their behavior, and help them get their reps in. Just yesterday, I was on a call with a company. They're doing AI video role plays. And the example he gave me, you guys would have died. He's like, well, I've got this new example. And I'm like, okay, cool. I don't actually dislike the platform. I actually like the first example he gave me a lot more than the second. And it's this video of how to use an espresso machine to like create a latte or something like that. And he's like, well, this video is more engaging. And I'm like, well, how is it more engaging exactly? And he's like, well, people learn better because they're actually like, you basically kind of like pop up. Like they give you a couple of prompts, like you ask it, like, how do I check the steam, or how do I create the steamed milk? How do I check the temperature? And I'm like, this is not actually going to change behavior. You know this, right? And he's like, yeah, it will. And I'm like, no. Like you actually have to get your reps in and you have to create it. Like I can see where there is value in something like this. If I'm in front of the machine and I'm like, oh, I don't know how to check the steam to like make sure I steam the milk right, and I pop it into this AI system. Okay, there's value there, but I'm not going to just like watch this video, click or ask it a question, and all of a sudden I'm going to know how to create an espresso. Like I was a barista when I was 17, and it took me a lot of lattes to become really good at it. And it was not the training the person gave me. And I think that's where we as an industry have to be better about, number one, making sure we're aligning with the proper technologies and tools and vendors. Okay, here she goes, already sneaking into the unhinged. The appropriate vendors and technologies, and making sure that we are keeping up with the education, right? Like a lot of people don't even know the model was evolved by Jim and Wendy. they still think of it as, the 4 levels, like as Don had it, and it's met the needs, or has evolved to meet the needs of today's workplace. We've got to do better about keeping up with our education.
Mm-hmm.
Jordan,
a lot of talking. So sorry.
No, you mentioned required drivers, both of you, and I think something came into my mind in connection to the title of this. Are you doing Kirkpatrick right? And one of the best ways I know if someone is doing Kirkpatrick right is not them what they tell me, but what they actually do. Jordan, would you mind taking us to June 2024? You found yourself running 13 miles in the mountains of Canada, and what you did to prepare yourself to do that. The drivers that prepared you to be fool enough to run in a cold rain 13 miles in Canada. Not fool enough, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, this was always the example I kind of gave in our bronze program when we were facilitating and even saying how the Kirkpatrick model isn't just useful for behavior change in your professional life, but personal life, you can use it too, right? So if my level 4 goal was to run a half marathon, I could learn about what it takes to run a half marathon, learn about, how I should fuel my body differently, but I had to actually train and do the behavior, right? In terms of what my required drivers were, I had an app that had a lot of guidance, so I didn't have to figure it all out on my own. It was basically subject matter experts, because I'm not an expert, that was telling me how long my training run should be, what my timing should be. So the critical behaviors were well defined, which was helpful. There were reminders for every day that my training run would have to come up. It also kind of served as like a visual aid, like a habit tracker that was reinforcing and kind of rewarding at the same time. I have an accountability group, like text group chat, where we kind of set our goals for the week, and mine happened to be running. Others would be, whatever their own personal goals were. And we would check in every week to say, hey, I did it, or I didn't do it. This is what I'm running into. So there's that added accountability. I mean, I paid for a flight to go out to Canada, which is also accountability. Like, it's happening, I'm going. I ran it with my partner. So there's a lot of different factors that came in to support me to be able to do it, and also to hold me accountable when there were plenty of days that I just simply did not want to do it.
I remember that.
Yeah.
I think that there was one required driver missing, and that was Jim training with you when you guys were out there. He could have been your coach. That'd have been awesome.
Yeah. Although he was an encouragement required driver anytime we were on site, because I would travel, my plan didn't change. And I'm like, Jim, I have to run tonight. You have to hold me accountable to it. And then the next day, of course, the rest of the class is like, did you run? And I'm like, yeah, I did. So it all works.
I love it. I love it. So, okay, before we go, I want to know if someone is brand new to Kirkpatrick, or someone's been doing it for a while, what's one piece of advice that you have?
I think if someone is brand new to the model, I would say to focus on behavior more than you focus on learning, because that's really the essence of the model. And if you're new to it, you probably are kind of feeling stuck in levels 1 and 2. So the more that you can think about application of what they've learned on the job in behavior change, how to help influence that, that's a good starting point. If people have been doing or using the model for a while, hopefully that mindset shift has happened, if they've used it correctly, like we're talking about. So the first thing I would probably tell them is to double check their resource allocation, make sure that the majority of it is in level 3. And if it's not, reallocate the resources from levels 1 and 2 into level 3. And if the resource allocation is a majority in level 3 and you're doing good, then I think the best recommendation is, how do you get even more strategic with your evaluation culture in the organization, to where you're not just successful in 1 or 2 initiatives, but you're replicating and automating and leveraging everything that has worked and spreading those best practices across really every change in the organization, but especially all the learning and performance initiatives.
I like that.
Beautiful. I know.
like
I
that
haven't,
very
I can't top that. So we're
I
gonna end there. I don't think you and I've ever been stumped, Jim, but here we
I
are.
am.
I've never been rendered speechless. And probably will never happen again. But anywho, Jordan, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for being a part of the Kirkpatrick family. We love you. Where can our listeners connect with you?
Yeah. LinkedIn's probably the easiest way. So you can just search my name in LinkedIn. And then, of course, the Kirkpatrick community, I will be there. So if people are not already a part of it, we'll do one more plug for it, because I think it's about to get really fun and engaging and helpful.
And level 3-ish.
Yeah.
Love it.
More than just engaging, right? We're going to help you apply all this stuff and support you and hold you accountable. So
That's
right.
we're watching.
Right.
Awesome. Thank you, Jordan and Jim, so much for being here. Friends, thank you so much for joining us. We hope that you are doing Kirkpatrick right, but just in case you wanted like a little check, make sure you join us for the August 15th webinar. Again, the link will be in the show notes. Make sure you like, subscribe, and leave a little rating and leave us some feedback. And then we want to know how you all are doing Kirkpatrick. So shoot us some information. Let us know what you all are up to, and we will talk to you all soon. Thanks, y'all.
Bye.
Thank you.